Jay here, Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm in my kitchen. I'm not in the studio or outside Old Trafford. I am in sunny Salford, and the weather outside is pretty grim. Make sure you are hitting like, share, and subscribe as we get into all the latest Manchester United news. We're going to be talking about Thomas Tuchel, obviously, becoming the new England manager. What does that mean for Manchester United? Because he was heavily linked, wasn't he, with the Manchester United job. There's also these fresh Zinedine Zidane links as well, as you may have gathered from the thumbnail. Plus, we'll get into you know what? We'll chat a little bit about the Fergie thing, because I don't think I've spoke to anyone about it on the live. So we can get into that. We can have a little conversation about Sir Alex Ferguson's role being changed, or being sacked, if you want to say that. I think it sounds a little bit sort of inflammatory, doesn't it? Fergie sacked, but his role's been changed at Manchester United. So we'll get into all that. Make sure before we do, though, you are hitting like, share, and subscribe. Good to see all the usual suspects in the chat. Jacoya Trot, Stephanie Griffiths, BMW Racing 1974, Santa Notch says fine, sunshine, morning Jay. Bob Relf, morning Jay. Mick Holohan, morning Jay. Steve says we're getting as bad as Talk Sport at this point about the manager every day. This is the news. We're not MUTV. We report what everyone is talking about. If you want to pick up a newspaper or you want to look at Google Manchester United, and you will just see talk about the manager. And this is what happens when you sat in the bottom half of the table, I'm afraid. And we can ignore it and we can pretend it ain't happening and just talk about something else. But then you'd probably be accused of ignoring the obvious news that everyone's talking about. Let's get into the Thomas Tuchel thing. That's the main story, not just about Manchester United, because obviously you might go, what's Thomas Tuchel, a man who's never managed Manchester United, becoming England manager, got to do with the Reds? But we know he was heavily linked with becoming our manager. INEOS apparently interviewed him, spoke to him, varying reports. It looks like they couldn't get to an agreement. He didn't quite fancy it, perhaps. The spin from the INEOS side of things is they didn't want him. We'll get into all that. Sorry, I'm just looking at some of the comments as well. So look, regardless of what happens, why he didn't come, we know he didn't come, right? We know that Erik Ten Hag still the Manchester United manager. Thomas Tuchel didn't come, but he's always been sort of in the background. There's been this link, hasn't there, where it'd be like, okay, look, Tuchel might end up being a Man United manager one day. He's the obvious candidate out there if we do decide to sack Erik Ten Hag. He's won a Champions League. He's managed in England. He's had success at PSG. He's had success to a certain degree at Bayern Munich and at Borussia Dortmund as well. It makes sense. However, he's off the table now. So let's have a look at the latest news on that one. Obviously, you've seen it everywhere. Thomas Tuchel confirmed as England's new manager. The Guardian are doing like a live blog on it. They're sort of giving loads of updates as to what is going on. Just a bit of a reminder. They put a bit of a reminder for everyone who's frothing at the mouth at the fact that England are managed by a German or a foreigner. Is the sort of the issue that a lot of people pretend they're having. But I think a lot of people who do have an issue with Thomas Tuchel managing England have an issue because he's German. I think that's just wrong. You shouldn't be bothered about that, in my honest opinion. If you don't think he's the right man for the job, fantastic. But his nationality, for me, has got absolutely nothing to do with anything. We've had Italian manager, haven't we, in Capello. We had a Swedish manager in Sven Goran Eriksson, and also had a Dutch manager in Steve McLaren. So come on, get a grip. Portugal are managed. This is what the Guardian says. Portugal are managed by Roberto Martinez of Belgium. Uruguay are managed by Marcelo Bielsa, an Argentinian. Belgium are managed by Domenico Tedesco, an Italian-German. USA are managed by Mauricio Pochettino, an Argentinian. Algeria are managed by Vladimir Petkovic, a Swiss. Colombia are managed by Néstor Lorenzo, an Argentinian. Sweden are managed by John Dahl Thomason, a Dane. So they're pointing out that lots of national teams have coaches that aren't of that nationality. I mean, are you bothered? Do you care? I don't. I'm not a massive England fan. I think Tuchel is a decent manager, and I think he's probably a good manager for England. There's talk of the FA going for Pep Guardiola. That obviously didn't happen. Tuchel comes in. He's managed in England. He'll know some of the players from his time managing England. He's won a Champions League. He's been to another Champions League final as well. So you can't ignore all that. I think he does deserve a little bit of patience, shall we say. I wouldn't say patience, but let him at least manage for a few games before you start kicking off about him, to be honest with you. I mean, it just seems like a little bit of a typical storm in a teacup with England fans, like, oh, he's got to be English. Well, has he? And a lot of people were moaning about Gareth Southgate, and he was English. Was he the answer to all our problems? No. I mean, I know he did okay. Well, he did all right, didn't he? He got to a couple of finals, but fell a little bit short. We should talk about Sir Alex Ferguson. I know Steve spoke about this with Joe yesterday, but I just want to get your thoughts on it. Get involved in the chat and the comments. Hit that like button as well, please. people, just let me know what you think about this news. This news broke yesterday about Sir Alex Ferguson sort of not being an ambassador for Manchester United anymore. So he's lost his, I think, is it £2.6 million role at the club. He's still going to be involved. I think he's a non-executive director or whatever he is. So he's still going to be at the club, but he's not going to be the ambassador or an ambassador anymore. Now, some people, I tweeted about this, and I said, I'll be honest with you, when I heard this, saw Adam Crafton's article in the Athletic yesterday, and I thought, just from an optics point of view, it doesn't look great. Because the sort of the headline is, INEOS sack Fergie almost. I know that's a little bit extreme, but you think, what's going on here? And it's like he's no longer an ambassador. They're taking that role off him. And you think that doesn't look great. For me, I just feel like, well, why are you taking some off Fergie? Why are you taking a role that he's getting well paid for off him? Does he not deserve that? But then other people saying, well, what's he doing? Is it value? We've also laid off all these people. I think there's been 250 redundancies. So Fergie losing his £2.61 million role for a job that might not have entailed quite a lot, it's not the end of the world. I get both sides of the argument. Personally, I wouldn't have liked to have seen it happen. I don't mind for Alex Ferguson getting paid loads of money, even if he's not doing anything, to be honest with you. But that's just me, because I'm absolutely in awe of the man because of what he did at Manchester United Football Club. Erik Cantona had something to say on the matter, as he often does. He's never shy of an opinion. He posted on Instagram, Sir Alex Ferguson should be able to do anything he wants at the club until the day he dies. Such a lack of respect. It's totally scandalous. Sir Alex Ferguson will be my boss forever, and I throw them all in a bag of shit. So he's been quite vociferous about the situation there. Erik Cantona, he says Fergie can do whatever he wants until he dies. And I kind of get that. Santa Notch says it's only news because it's Sir Alex and it was spun as something way bigger than it is. I think if you scratch beneath the surface, it's probably not as bad as some have made out. And Elle says, Jay, the timing and publicity of it all were ill-advised. One thing I didn't agree with, I went on Real Red Talk last night speaking about this. I just think that the way you handle things, the way you publish things, and the way the news reaches us can be managed a little bit better. Because when you read this story via The Athletic, now Adam Crafton's a very good journalist. We've had him on the channel. He's broken stories before. He's one that broke the Mason Greenwood story when it looked like Mason Greenwood was going to be returning to Manchester United. So he knows what he's doing. But when it's sort of leaked or it comes out in a story like that, exclusive scoop, Fergie sacked, it's like, what? And I just think there's a better way to announce things like that. INEOS could have got ahead of that. They could have made maybe an announcement, a bit of a statement, said it's amicable, which I think is what they're saying. Since it could have even had a conversation where it's sort of termed more of a mutual decision rather than their decision. I don't know. It just felt a little bit messy the way it was handled. Just a sort of a story coming out on a Tuesday morning or whatever it was. So yeah, I just think it could have been handled a little bit better. You may disagree. A lot of these things are the optics. It's not necessarily the decision. It's how it can look. Yeah. And if it looks a bit like, right, what's going on there? That can be what gets everyone's back up rather than the actual decision itself. And a lot of people going, well, it's a business decision. INEOS are here to make business decisions. Okay, I'm a sentimental fan, so I'm different. My opinion is different than what you might be if you're a cold, hard businessman or business person. But I just think you can maybe send that sort of news out a little bit better than the way it was portrayed. Santa Notch says he's not even been sacked. His role has been changed. I mean, this is the thing, right? You've got but this is why you've allowed this sort of narrative to build as well, because you haven't sort of got ahead of the story, let the story get ahead of you. So the Daily Mail says Sir Alex Ferguson is told to stay away from the Man United dressing room. See, this is what the story becomes in yet another controversial move after Sir Jim Ratcliffe sacked club legend from his 2.61 ambassadorial role, 2.61 million ambassadorial role. Sacked is in inverted commas there. And it says Sir Alex Ferguson and the Manchester United Football Board have been asked not to enter the dressing room at Old Trafford, breaking a tradition that stretches back to the days of Sir Matt Busby. Early on Tuesday, it emerged that Sir Ferguson had seen his multi-million-pound ambassadorial role stripped by the club's new part owner, INEOS, as part of a wide-ranging cost-cutting programme. I mean, the story's kind of done now. That was from yesterday evening. We'll still see a little bit of rumblings on, and obviously Erik Cantona speaking out of it was newsworthy. But I think we'll all move on very quickly if we haven't done so already. And you can obviously share your opinion and let us know what you think. but it's a decision that has been made, and we're all going to have to live with it. Let's talk about this Zidane thing, this Zidane rumor, because whenever I see the Zidane talk, I always think, no, it ain't happening. I think he's been pretty lukewarm at best about managing in England. Don't think he speaks English. That doesn't mean he can't manage in England. Obviously, Maurizio Pochettino came to this country, he didn't speak English. Roberto Mancini came to this country, he didn't speak English, sorry. I think they learned it whilst they were here. They used an interpreter, obviously, while they were here, and they had a lot of success. Marcelo Bielsa was another one who didn't speak English. It's not the be-all and end-all. And also, Zinedine Zidane is a very intelligent man. I'm sure if he put his mind to it, he could learn English. I just don't see it happening anytime soon. But that doesn't mean that the stories aren't still doing the rounds, and we're still not seeing reports. We've seen a couple of stories this morning. There's one here in the Mirror, and this is from, I think, Daniel Orme. It says Manchester United back in action this week, and then it sort of talks about how obviously Ten Hag could be sacked, and then it mentions a little bit about Zidane, and he's saying that he said here that I think Emmanuel Petit has been quoted, the former Arsenal midfielder. He's sort of suggesting that he could come to Manchester United, that Zinedine Zidane could come to Manchester United. I don't know how reliable he is as a source in terms of whether he thinks or whether he knows what's going to happen, but he's saying that is a move that could work in the future, but he's going to want guarantees if he's going to come. We saw this story the other day about how he wanted, if he was going to come to United, I think we wanted Jules Koundé. There was a story doing the rounds yesterday or the day before about if Zidane was going to come to Manchester United, then he wanted, he would have wanted the sort of certain guarantees in terms of transfers and stuff. There's also this story doing the rounds as well this morning about Zidane, not just about him coming, but about him being in conversation still with INEOS. Apparently him and Jean Claude Blanc speak, and there's this sort of rumor about, okay, they're in conversations, is there some sort of conversation going on about whether he's going to come to Manchester United? It all seems like more rumor, conjecture, and people putting two and two together and coming up with 47 rather than a solid story about Zinedine Zidane is coming to Old Trafford or is likely to take over from Erik ten Hag, if indeed Erik ten Hag does end up leaving, which he might not, let's not forget. But there's nothing there where I can look at it and go, yeah, that makes me feel this is definitely going to happen. These links have been doing the rounds for years. Do you remember when Jose Mourinho was manager and there was talk that Zidane was going to come to Old Trafford and succeed Jose Mourinho? Then I think Jose Mourinho was asked about in his press conference, and he told the journalist that asked him to turn around and ask the journalist behind him, because that was the journalist that had ran the story. If you remember, he said, turn around and ask him behind you. He's the one running the story. So it doesn't feel like there's much in it, because this has been going on for years. It didn't happen, obviously, when Jose left. Ollie came in. It's not happened since. Could it happen one day? Maybe. I mean, Manchester United are still one of the biggest clubs in the world. Zinedine Zidane has managed at Real Madrid. Would he want to come to another big club like Manchester United one day? Perhaps. But as ARAZ says, Zidane is waiting for Deschamps to retire so he can take over France. That seems more likely, doesn't it? You can see Zidane, he's obviously a French legend. You could see him taking over from Deschamps. That could be a move that he fancies. Obviously, international football, it's not as hectic, for want of a better word, as club football. That might suit him a little bit more. I don't know. I just feel that Manchester United, it's still a long-term project, isn't it, United? Whoever comes in, yes, you've got to have a certain degree of success initially. You've got to, win football matches, whatever. But I think in terms of winning titles and getting back into the Champions League and challenging for Champions League, that's not going to happen overnight. That's going to take a few years. And I think, is Zidane the guy that's going to come in and try and build something over a number of years? I'm not so sure he is. I'm not so sure he'd want to do that. Let me know what you think. Get involved in the chat in the comments. And also, if you don't think it's going to be Zidane, which is fair enough, I don't think it will be. Do you think Ten Hag, his job is safe? Do you think he's safer now? Do you think he's going to succeed? Do you think he's going to turn things around? Because he's under a lot of pressure. People looking at the Brentford game and saying that if he loses that, he could be in all sorts of pressure. And I agree. I think he could be. But INEOS have backed him so far to a certain degree in terms of They've not sacked him, if you can call that backing him. Will they stick with him if the results continue? Let me know. Chris Griffith says, I've said this before, in the 99 season, we were 8th after the first few games. If we can change the draws into wins, we are back in the top 6. It's a huge overreaction at the moment. So Chris Griffith still feels pretty, I presume feels pretty confident that we'll turn things around. I remember that. Not just the 99 season. I think the 2008 season, we had a pretty patchy start as well. The first season we won the Premier League, we were bottom of the first ever Premier League table. I think we took 1 point from our first 3 games or something. It was a bad start for Manchester United when it first started the Premier League, but we went on to do all right. Ant L says, Jay, I think he gets sacked by January. Ruder's interim till summer. Then INEOS pursue Nagelsmann. Bartholomew Omak de Connacht says, Sir Alex was always honoured when Sir Matt went into the dressing room. I think the dressing room thing is an interesting one, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of people that aren't the manager or part of the coaching setup going into the dressing room. I'm not. Now, you might argue, well, Sir Alex Ferguson, it's different. All bets are off when Sir Alex Ferguson do what I want. I get it. But I feel like that should almost be like, not a safe haven. It's not like somewhere like you can go if, you're under attack. But that should be almost sort of just for the players and the coaching staff. I used to hate when I used to see Ed Woodward going into the changing rooms after a win. You remember that win in Paris? And he'd be down there. And I think, well, you're the guy that is ultimately going to sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, as he did in the end. You shouldn't be going down there and getting involved. You're not there to give the players any advice. So I do get that argument. However, the flip side to it, I think Rio Ferdinand's spoken about this, and one or two others spoken about it, how in Moscow, I think Bobby Charlton went into the dressing room and he had a little chat with some of the players, and some of the players said that really helps him. So it depends who the person is and what they're doing in the dressing room. I think if Fergie's going in there to offer support and he's been invited by the manager, fine. If, however, it's just part of the sort of the perks, if you will, of being a director, you get to go in the dressing room, then I understand why that isn't is being stopped by INEOS. And El says it's a weird one. Liverpool barred Shankly from the dressing room, I believe. Yeah, look, Shankly used to say he got treated better at Goodison Park than he did at Anfield after he left Liverpool. He said he wasn't treated well at Liverpool at all. And he's got out of the training ground. They had to ban him, I think, from the training ground because he was sort of just almost getting in the way. Let me know what you think. Make sure you are smashing a like, please, people. Let's get to, I don't even know what we're on in terms of likes. I'm doing this on me in a minute. Let's get to 100 likes. Come on, hit the like button. John B, what's he saying? He's saying, get Sean Dyche in. Onana just booting it to Garnacho 30 times a game. Yeah, get Sean Dyche in. He'd be the answer. I don't think we'll ever go down that route. Obviously, I think that's been a little bit tongue in cheek. Bartholomew says it's crazy. Should Bobby Charlton not have joined training before the 99 Champions League final? Have you ever seen that? Seen that footage of him training? How old is he? About 16. He's running around like a 15-year-old. Chris Griffith says the shadow of Busby was too big for many a manager until Fergie. There is lots of interviews where Sir Alex Ferguson mentions the pressure of having Busby smoking his pipe in the cliff, watching everything. Maybe there is an element of that. I think ultimately, if the manager wants Sir Alex Ferguson to get involved in anything, he can ask him. If not, then it's got to be the manager's call when it comes to the first team and who's in the dressing room and all that kind of thing. I think, there's enough pressure as being manager of Manchester United without people coming in there, even if it is Sir Alex Ferguson. XTI 2020 says we can use this, but can he build a team? BS as an excuse not to sack Ten Hag. So are you thinking Ten Hag should go? Let me know what you think. Do you think it is time to sack Ten Hag? I gather from your thoughts then of your comment, that's what you're believing. Listen, I've said it many times over the last couple of weeks in particular. I always backed Ten Hag, but I began to lose faith after the Spurs game. I really did, and I hope he turns it around. I really hope he does, because it's not been easy the last few weeks watching Manchester United. You look at the Spurs game, the Liverpool game, the FC20 game, the Porto game. We just look a bit lost, and the lack of goals is frustrating me. INEOS is sticking with him, and I would love nothing more than Erik Ten Hag now to go on a run, silence the critics, make his job safe, and hopefully get Manchester United back to where we belong. Challenging at the top end of the table. I'm sick of these conversations about Liverpool and Arsenal and City and a title race and all the rest of it. And yes, we've won some trophies under Erik ten Hag, and that's great. But you want to be back in that top end of the table, not just challenging for top four, challenging for titles. All this talk about Sir Alex Ferguson's made me nostalgic. It's made me sort of remember all the good times we had under him, where we took it for granted we'd always been a title race. And if we finished second, it'd be a disastrous season. Now we finished second. It's our best we've done since 2013. It's an absolute joke. John Ryder says Manchester United finished. I don't quite agree with that one, to be fair. It's 1 point of view. Tegder says he's going to get sacked, just a matter of time. Simple 3 says, what do you think of Boubacar Kamara? He would be the perfect player for Mania. We'll have to wait and see. There was one thing actually I wanted to talk about as well. I saw he went off, didn't he, in the game for Uruguay. Was it Uruguay versus Ecuador last night? There was talk that he went off. I think he went off. I think it was after 82 minutes as well. And there was reports that he might have had a slight knock or something. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. I don't want to sort of start. Start stirring. But there's a report here in the Metro. Says United summer signing Emmanuel Ugarte suffers injury blow ahead of the Brentford clash. Manchester United, have been dealt yet another injury concern after Emmanuel Ugarte was forced off with a muscle problem in Uruguay's World Cup qualifying match with Ecuador. Great. Just what we want. It says here, Ugarte has been used sparingly by Ten Hag since swapping Paris Saint-Germain for Old Trafford. And the 23-year-old was not even called upon for the club's last 2 matches against Porto and Villa. It's quite ironic, that, isn't it, if you're sort of resting him and saving him for Manchester United, and he goes away with Uruguay and gets injured. But we'll wait and see. XCI 2020 says, good show, mate. Always like to hear your point of view. More balanced than most commentators. I appreciate that. It's nice to have some nice comments there. Danny A says, he went off injured. I tried to stay up to see if I could watch it, but I fell asleep. Sonali says, we could have got Kamara for free from Marseille with Ralph, but Glazers didn't want to sign anyone in January. We'll have to wait and see. Kamikaze Tuchel says, are we underachieving though? We can't keep using players' peak form from the past as a benchmark. We need to face it. Some have declined and aren't going back to the top. Stephanie Griffith says 3 points, 3 goals bare minimum. We don't ask for much. Hope it doesn't take 3 games to achieve that. It's kind of what we're on at the minute, isn't it? Less than a goal a game in the Premier League is an absolute nightmare. And Elsa tweaks hamstring, I think. Feels that Erik ten Hag doesn't want to play him anyway. That is a real concern. If you've brought in a player or if the player's been forced upon you that you don't want. Santa Not says the latest chapter in United muscle injury saga. Jared Carby says maybe that Pogba hyena curse was true. We do feel a little bit cursed at the minute, don't we, with the amount of injuries we're getting. It has just been a bit of a nightmare. L. Johnson says, Jay, it is 11:16 here in New Zealand. I cannot sleep. Erik ten Hag's is in my nightmares. He's in his nightmares, Erik ten Hag. I feel for you there, kid. Hopefully, he'll be in your dreams sooner rather than later, and that can start with a win over Brentford at the weekend. John B says, when's the next Scotty and Motty? Been too long since you spoke about The Wire. Always the best episodes. We'll do another Scotty and Motty about The Wire. If not this week, next week. So we'll get that out. Thanks, John B. Thanks for your support. Thanks to everyone who got involved in the chat and the comments. Thanks to everyone who has hit like, share, and subscribe. We're going to be back later on. We're going to have agree or disagree. Then we're going to have Paddock live as well later on tonight. I'm putting in the hours here today, me kids. Eh? It's a long day. Don't you worry about that. Kamikaze Ticker says Agony Bants. Yeah, that'll be back as well. Listen, I'm Jay Motty. This has been the Paper Talk from a pretty rainy Salford. Thanks for watching.